Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and I am joined by my brother, the Gritty Broman. How are you, Brent?
I am well.
Today's podcast is with Brice Bishop, and it's kind of an entrepreneurial podcast slash product design. You know, he is the owner of Sissy Sticks.
Big Sissy Gear.
Big Sissy Gear.
Makers of the Sissy Stick.
Which we debate the name of the business on the podcast quite a bit. But one thing I want to say is if you're interested in being in starting a business, getting into the hunting industry, later in the show we kind of get into what it takes and what he did and why he's doing what he's doing and how he's doing what he's doing. So long story short, you know, he got this idea because he didn't like the trekking poles available on his hunt that he used to actually make some for the hunting industry. So he started to explore that, tested a whole bunch, did all these things. A couple years later, he's got poles and he put them out on the market. His biggest fear was, I got to write this giant check. I don't blame his wife for wondering if he's crazy or for like wanting to put a freeze on the bank account, but nevertheless, he ordered a giant batch, and they've been received so well. He just sold his first batch, completely sold out. And he's ordering more, and so far the market has responded super uber positively. We talk about a couple things on the podcast where we talk about trekking poles, but we don't even get the exact numbers, statistics of the efficiency of using trekking poles. And I think they're a totally underrated piece of equipment.
Yep.
And so Brenton just did some Googling, and you found out.
So the Journal of Sports Medicine talks about that the right kind of, if they're set up to the right height and stuff, that trekking poles can reduce compressive force on your knees by as much as 25%.
Yeah. I wonder what else, like in terms of not just compressive force, but also I would argue
that's just going downhill,
reducing
really.
energy expended, because going downhill, at least maybe transferring the energy expended from the legs to the arms or the upper body.
Distributing it at the very least.
We do talk about the difference between having 2 legs on the ground and 4 legs on the ground.
They'll beat me up those hills every time because they've got 4.
Yeah. Before we get into the podcast, and I think you'll enjoy it because it is it's not just an infomercial about Sissy Sticks. It's not like that at all. Brice is just a cool dude.
I really like
and
Brice.
We are working with Sissy Sticks. We mention it all the time because we want to see Brice succeed, and because Brice is helping out Gritty in return. And this is like a win-win for everybody. And the poles are legit. Lampers is loving his, and
Brice brought us a couple pairs to give away.
And we actually give one away on this podcast live.
Yeah.
So, sort of live. You know.
Once this goes live, I'll send an email to him.
So,
but we've got more that we're giving away, so sign up to the newsletter.
Yes. Brent has been randomly selecting comments he finds on YouTube that he wants me to read before we start the podcast. And so we've been doing a little bit of that. He keeps progressively picking comments that sort of he knows will kind of annoy me. And
picking out and sifting through everyone's comments isn't necessarily my favorite part of the job.
Anyway, I'm an opinionated guy, so, you know, but I try to be diplomatic as well and just be straight. But so Brent picked this comment out. Came in about a week ago from Aaron Wilder.
This came off of the podcast we just had with Ryan Bassham on the podcast, the guy from Sitka Gear.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So we did I Get Ducks on Instagram. Ryan Bassham, good friend of ours.
That name's so misleading. I get, like, he only goes duck hunting.
Yeah. He's a world hunter. He just killed some ibex in, I don't know, Europe or whatever.
I think
Mongolia,
anyone that's willing to
Asia.
Go to the stands has an extra set of brass balls.
Yeah, and he did. I don't know. It's just a sick-looking ibex, and I think there's something to be said. I've said this before. World adventure is awesome. There's great. You can have adventures in your backyard in Colorado or Idaho or whatever, but you can also have them overseas in a different culture, in a different land where there's Chinese rebels shooting at you. And I think all of them have their value. But
cool
some
too,
are
though.
more relatable than others. Anyway, Aaron Wilder writes, the Sitka gear should be made in the USA for what they charge for it. I have a Jetstream jacket I got used through a guy. That thing is awesome, but I could never afford to pay full price for it. Is there any information about the decline of the habitat available to hunters, the corresponding the decline in hunting? I think if you're not willing to listen to a person's reason for not spending $1,000 for a set of clothes to sit in a tree stand, when you can spend $100 for a set of clothes that gets the job done, you're a snob. If you think you need to blow a bunch of cash on the latest stuff to get the job done, that's good for you. Some of us can't afford to do so. I am one of those individuals who can't afford the latest stuff, so I wear the work clothes for hunting. The truck I drive is 20 plus years old. The house I have is 100 years old and needs fixed up. I don't have nice things, but my bills are paid. Look, everyone in this world has a different set of priorities. And I don't think anyone said that you had to spend $1,000. You'll never ever hear me say you have to spend money in order to kill an animal.
Hunt I did last week in a pair of sweatpants for most of it.
Yeah. It looked like you were a bum living off the street.
I looked like a homeless person.
If you were more my size, I have a lot of clothing you could borrow.
I know, it sucks. Why are you so small?
You're so giant. But he says, no one is a snob. Mm-mm. Bassham is not a snob. He came from humble beginnings just like you and I. I came from way more humble beginnings than you did because my parents were 16, 17 when I was born.
Yep.
And teenagers are not wealthy. And it takes a long time to build some wealth. By the time you came along, they had done some things.
My parents had money.
But we had none. and so I think, everybody comes at a different place. Some people come to me and they're like, dude, I would never spend, $2,000 on bow and arrow. Mm-hmm. But they'll spend $60,000 on their truck. So everybody comes to everything from a different place. And it's just about your priorities and what you want to buy. And it's about building wealth over time. Some people are poverty stricken, and I've been there before. But that's the great thing about hunting is you can use garbage and still hunt. It's not as comfortable. It's not as nice, but everyone can do it. When Ben and I were hunting back in the day, we bought a tent from Walmart. It was $19.99. It was like a single wall, and it had a mesh top, and then it had the fly that went over the mesh top that just covered the mesh top. It was like a foot by a foot. It would leak. It was stupid, and it weighed like 90 pounds. And I remember we just bought peanut butter and jelly and some loaves of bread, and we just made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for everything, all day, every day. And we went hunting for days on end and backpacked. And and we killed elk. I should say Ben killed an elk. I killed a spike. He killed a nice big bull. Those days, we did things whether we had the money or not. And we did them in gear that we couldn't afford. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't need a sissy stick. You can make one out of a stick from a tree, from a blowdown on the ground. Mm-hmm. No question. So nobody, and you'll never hear me say this, nobody, on Gritty is going to say you need to spend a whole bunch of money if you're going to be successful, or if you're going to, no, it's going to make it more fun, more comfortable. It's going to make it can increase your odds of success, like all these things do, but nobody is being a snob or looking down on someone who's got of meager means at this time.
That picture they have at Leupold of the guy with that giant buck. He's got a hat on. He just came from church. He has his church shoes on, smoking a cigarette. That dude shot a gigantic buck. Mm-hmm. And he was walking around in the equivalent of church shoes.
Right. It looks like Burt Reynolds. So I just think I understand when people look at someone, whipping out $1,000 set of, gear for sitting in a tree stand and being like, I can't afford that, and that's a stupid waste of money. The thing is, everybody is at a different economic level. Mm-hmm. And for some people, that's not a waste of money. That's actually an enjoyable purchase. Dave Ramsey has this quote where he says something like, too many young people, paraphrasing, too many young people want to have the wealth their parents had at age 22 that it took their parents to age 50 to achieve. And So I think that it's not, there are people who are very poor in this country. There are. And the great thing about it is in our country, there's an equal opportunity for everyone. You have the same chances to grow and develop. There's no laws or things preventing you from growing. And, when you read like The Millionaire Mind or The Millionaire Next Door and stuff like that, you start to learn that a lot of the millionaires in the world today are the ones that grew up with the least amount of money and went without for a long time. The good news is in this country, everyone can over time build a significant amount of wealth.
You remember Dave Chappelle's last special where he talks about him being growing up being poor and his dad freaking out on him for being poor, telling him, "You're not poor. Poor is a mindset." I can't remember.
State of mind.
A state of mind, yeah. You are broke.
Right. Yep. Definitely. So anyway, every time I do a gear dump, I'll have people write in and say, well, I can't afford that. You're just rich. Dude, I can't afford to have that stuff either. And I wouldn't buy a bunch of it if I was in my 20s. I have college and other things I got to pay for first. But as you age and as you get older and as you save and you work hard, you're able to develop some wealth and you can get things that you couldn't buy or have earlier in life. And when I do a gear dump, I'm not saying this is what you have to be successful. I'm saying this is what I used in case you're wondering, and it helps you. That's it. As far as it being made in the USA or not, just about everything is made outside of the US right now. Some things are coming back into the U.S. and starting to be manufactured here, and I think that's great. I think it's great for America. I think it's great to keep our dollars here. I think it's great to keep us from being bullied by China, like the NBA issue that's going on. So I would like to see more things built here, but there's also a case for global markets too. So I don't know. I think as far as saying it's too expensive, there's all the products out there, whether it's First Light, whether it's Kuiu, whether it's any brand, they're all up there in price, and that's just the nature of what the market says it's worth. If the market didn't think it was worth it, they wouldn't pay for it and then they wouldn't make it and there would be no Sitka. But there's enough people with money that say, yeah, I want to pay for that and I want it at that price and I will do it, that it's going to be there.
You're paying for comfort. That's it. You're paying to be comfortable out in the backcountry. The more comfortable you are, the longer you can stay.
Right. But again, not everybody has that kind of money.
Like I said, I did it in sweatpants.
Yeah, and I did it with Camo Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get it used.
Dude, I showed my wife Camo Fire the other day. She downloaded it. It's been the worst thing ever. I'm getting screenshots constantly. What do you think of this? What do you think of that?
Yeah, for those who don't know, you can download the Camo Fire app to your phone.
Oh, man.
And then they buy seconds and tweaked gear and just deals on stuff, and then they liquidate it at a great price. It's sort of like an auction, and it just comes through your app every day. Like, here's a knife for $5. That's normally $50 and stuff like that.
There's like a $400 blind up there for $80.
Yeah,
and I had
exactly.
to tell her no.
So I built most of in the early days, my stockpiles of gear from stuff I got used or like from Camo Fire. So this one Brent just put on there just to annoy me as well. This is a question from Scott Anderson. He said, is this the same podcast? I don't know which one it is. He says,
it's a different one.
Seems like that dude on the left spends his time trying to flex his arms the whole time. I asked Brent, well, who's the dude on the left? Like, what's he talking about? Apparently that's me. That's me. I don't know what episode this was. It's funny. I was out in the hallway the other day. And Schaefer, who works here, is like, dude, what?
You carb loading?
You carb loading?
You dehydrated?
Yeah, you doing stuff for I'm like, no, my average everyday self today. And he's like, your veins are popping everywhere. Your arms are like jacked.
Not normal, bro.
It's not normal. I'm like, that's just how I am.
You are a veiny bastard, I must say.
My arms I've always had, sort of a muscular arm. But I have the flattest chest on the planet. Everybody has their thing, dude. Everybody, it's like bodies are different. I do try to stay fit. but I don't make any intentional effort to flex. They're just arms.
I have a concave chest, so I don't really do a whole lot of chest exercises.
Yeah, Brent's missing an entire pectoral muscle on one side. Yeah. You're freaking Quasimodo over there.
If I take my shirt off, it looks like I have a lazy eye.
Anyway, thanks for those questions, bro. Appreciate that.
I'm not the one who left them, but you're welcome.
Anyway, I just think, you know what? If you don't like the spot you're in this world, get to a different spot. Mm-hmm. Save money. Earn it. Sacrifice. And I don't get me wrong. Everyone has a cross to bear or gets hit by something hard, goes through some huge financial loss. I lost hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in real estate investments. Guess what? I went from the cusp of being what you'd call a millionaire to a poor man. So, hey, and you just dig out of that and you move to the next phase. I'll tell you this, when it comes to wealth and wealth building, there's a few things they say you shouldn't do or you should do. Graduate from high school.
Didn't do that.
Don't have a child out of wedlock.
Check.
And there's a few other things, which is don't go into debt. Mm-hmm. And I think that's huge. Don't go into debt. And if you are in debt, do everything you can to get out of it. Everything. Dave Ramsey has a great story on this. Great story where he's like, okay, you're watching like National Geographic or Mutual of Omaha for this older generation. and the gazelles are all out in the grass and they're running around and jumping around, right? And it's been a while since I've heard the story, but the cheetah comes along. And the cheetah's like creeping up on the gazelle, sneaking up. And the gazelle is like looking around like, no cheetahs. We're good. But you just know something's going to get eaten because this is National Geographic. So you're just waiting. And then that cheetah, he's sneaking up. And then one of the gazelles like sees the cheetah and it's like, cheetah! And every gazelle's like, boing! And they all just shoot in different directions. And the cheetah goes after him. And there's this like, every bit of energy and every bit of focus and every ounce of energy is to get away from that cheetah. All of it, like poured into the escape and getting away from the cheetah. He's like, that's the focus you need to have if you want to get out of debt. No one just like wanders out of debt. Oh, gosh, I'm out of debt today. No, he's like, it's an amputation. It's an amputation of stuff. It's an amputation of it's like cutting your arm off. It's that difficult to get out of debt because you have to give up a lot of things about keeping up with the Joneses, about things you want to have right now because you can't delay gratification, all sorts of things. So this whole cheetah thing, he's like, that's the focus you need. So you go out to your mailbox and you open a piece of mail and it says, free Visa card. You need to be thinking, cheetah! You need to throw that thing in the garbage and move on. Like, focus. Get away from it. That thing is trying to destroy you. And I will say that not having debt is a path to wealth for every human being. Do your best to stay out of debt. Arnie talked about that on a recent podcast that I did with him. And he's like, his wife and him attribute their success to being out of debt, to financial wealth. They said, we will not borrow money to buy things that depreciate. Anyway, I think getting out of debt and staying out of debt is that other piece to key to financial success. And if you're going to sit there and carry revolving debt and be in debt on car after car and go into debt to buy yourself a boat and a jet ski and all of that, and you're paying high interest rates, and you're just going to be poor your whole life.
And a tip, the fastest way to make money is to sell something.
Well, and to get out of debt is to just you have a ton of crud in your house that's worth a lot of money.
I sold all my earthly possessions to buy that Jeep, bro.
Yeah, everything. And some of mine.
Everything. Yeah, a little bit, yeah. And you left it. You left it in the wrong state.
It's funny. I think you raised like $14,000 or something on money on stuff just laying around the house.
Yeah, Mom said, I would ask Mom, can I sell this? And she'd say, yeah. That's after I gained 10 just selling all my earthly possessions.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mom's
Which turns out you didn't really need, and we're just kind of...
They were hanging around. A lot of them were in boxes, to be honest. And, for those people out there that are lucky enough, there's also this thing called plasma. Everyone's got it.
Right.
And it's worth some cash.
We called it blood money.
Yeah, they won't take me.
So I gave plasma 2 days a week all through college. And I got donates. I want to say I made like $40 a week.
They pay a lot better now, bro.
Well, I'm an old dude.
Daisy makes...
I just turned 45, by the way.
Downhill, bro. It's all downhill from
45 here. A few days ago. Thanks for all the well wishes, people. Appreciate that.
Daisy makes almost an extra paycheck, like almost near $500 going twice a week.
I should just go do that. I got great blood.
Yeah. You'd be in and out 10 minutes.
Yeah. I'm cheap enough to do that.
It's pretty sweet, dude. You call... They schedule a time, you show up. Daisy's never been there longer than 40 minutes.
I tell people, and I tell Suzanne, I basically got her to marry me using blood money. I paid for food in college. I paid for dates in college.
You got to wine and dine with a little lightheadedness.
I got home from Japan and went to college. Was down at BYU, Idaho for a year. Ben was on a mission in New Zealand. Ben comes home from New Zealand and joins me, and I'm like, hey, plasma, money. We don't have to work, bro. We just walk in, squeeze a tennis ball, watch a movie.
Get in and get out.
Get out, they give you money. He's like, really?
Practically robbing these folks blind.
So we go down to the plasma center. We're giving plasma. I get up, walk out. Ben gets up and faints. Wham! Hits the floor, just goes down like a sack of bricks. I'll never let him forget it. It was a non-manly moment for Ben that I like to remind him of, as well as the time I saved his life, which the Boy Scouts of America have officially given me a hero award for.
It's a little gay now, but I mean, back then it was pretty cool.
Anyway, folks, let's jump into the podcast. I hope you enjoy it. Enjoy the show. Let us know what you think and get yourself some sissy sticks. Mm-hmm. It helps us both out.
Sign up for the newsletter. We're giving some away. But you can also, if you just don't want to wait or risk it, 15% off. Use code GRITTY.
Yes. Thank you, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Always appreciate all the support and all the comments, feedback. Stay gritty. Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Collin. I'm joined by my brother, the Gritty Broman, also known as Brent.
That is my name.
Not very flashy. Yeah. I like Gritty Broman.
The Gritty Broman.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other voice you're hearing or seeing if you're watching on YouTube, Brice Bishop, BB.
BB. Yeah.
BB.
Lots of people called me that growing up. BB.
Did they?
Yeah.
Brice Bishop. And Brice and I, we met over the interwebs because you came out with a product that I really liked. And I'm not even sure how I ended up with them in my hands. Oh, I know. So Brice is the founder of
Big Sissy
Gear, and he produces the Sissy Sticks, which are trekking poles that I've been using all year.
And abusing
and testing and hammering. And I like them. So we got Brice in today. This is not going to be a sales pitch about Sissy Sticks, but it's going to be informative. We're just going to talk about a little bit about who you are real quick.
Sure.
Your background and the design, like why you've built them the way you did.
Yeah.
And probably not a long podcast, but we're just going to kind of go over the whole kind of entrepreneur side of this too. Because a lot of guys want to get into the industry, want to get into, something other than their day job. And here you are kind of launching into this thing. And so we'll talk a little bit about that too.
Sounds good.
So Brice Bishop, I was hiking this hill right behind the office here.
Right.
And I was using some different trekking poles, and I'd had the same black diamond poles that I really liked that I paid I think $150 for it, more than 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Back when.
Yeah, expensive.
Yeah. Backpacker magazine said these were the ones,
right.
They were clip
the last
lock.
pole you'll ever need.
Yeah, they were clip lock. I did not want to twist. I had those before. Sure. They were lightweight. They had aluminum. It was just kind of what I was looking for. And I actually really, really liked them for a really long time. But I'd see these carbon fiber ones come out, and I'd be like, man, those are so light.
Yeah.
Those are so light. And as a backpacker, I mean, the lighter I can make things, the better.
Right.
So I'm hiking the mountain, and I actually asked on my Instagram story about trekking poles. Everybody text me like your favorite poles. I appreciate, some what's out there. I haven't shopped in like 10 years.
Yeah, it's been a decade with these old gals.
Right.
And the reason I needed new ones is because I left them in British Columbia with Dustin Rowe and Tanis and Doran and all those guys.
And they weren't coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get some feedback from folks. And there was a surprising number of people who told me I needed to check out Sissy Sticks. It's a new product that you guys are hunters. You live near me, that you're kind of entrepreneurs. This isn't like your REI brand, or this isn't Black Diamond. This is just a dude that is into hunting and is trying to make something cool. So that appeals to me, just to work with someone who is entrepreneurial and innovative and, taking a risk. So,
and I remember that day, like we've got some friends that are connected, watch you all the time. And my phone like blew up, and it's like, Brian Call just asked what kind of trekking poles people like. You need to get on this, reach out to him. And so we did. And, you were gracious enough to say, yeah, send me a pair. Let me try them out.
I was so skeptical, and I get that all the time, right? So I'm like, yeah, whatever. Send me a pair. I'm probably going to hate them,
right.
but I will look at them. I mean, maybe, didn't have a lot of faith. And they showed up, and then they kind of met my requirements. And then I thought, well, I'll just break them. Let's see. And I couldn't break them. So that's when I was like, okay, you guys might be onto something. Let's talk. I would be happy to recommend these to my listeners. And here's the deal. When it comes to trekking poles, they're totally undervalued by people who don't spend a lot of time backpacking.
Right.
Because they're a critical tool for me, critical part of any backcountry hunt for me, and for a lot of reasons. But I really felt like they're underutilized, undervalued. And it's ironic. I was like, can't you name them something else? Yeah. Come on, dude. Sissy Sticks, big sissy gear. I don't want to own something that says basically sissy. I'm a sissy.
Yeah.
I wanted something that says I'm gritty.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so I was like, that was one of the things I gave you a hard time over. Like, what the heck? Why sissy gear? And so I wanted to find out more about that, and you talked to me and kind of explained your theory behind it. I'm still not sure it's sound.
I haven't heard the theory yet.
Well, I mean, just that we're all a little sissy at some point, right? I mean, we want to go in the backcountry. We want to go as far and as deep as we can and hunt as hard as we can. But our bodies, our physical bodies, more our minds probably than anything, give out on us at some point. And so, trekking poles are one of those pieces of gear that just help you go that much further, that much farther, help you have that mental toughness to get deeper.
And that's the thing is people undervalue.
Yeah.
I think the statistic, you should know, you're the trekking pole guy.
Yeah, right.
But there's something like you use some crazy amount of less muscle when you use a trekking pole.
Yeah.
It's like 40% less.
Yeah, the fatigue factor is crazy when you're not using them, right? I mean, you're just relying 100% on your legs at that point.
Especially under load.
And under load, yeah.
Yeah, so it was some ridiculous amount of support and less fatigue, less muscle usage when you engage with a trekking pole.
Sure. And
when you see the efficiency numbers using a trekking pole versus hiking without a trekking pole, it's a no-brainer. You've got to have them.
Sure.
In the past, I might pick up a stick, carve something, grab a couple of sticks in my hand, and come back from a hike with a 100-pound pack, using that so I wouldn't have to carry them in because they were heavy, cumbersome, whatever.
Sure.
Now, though, it's like it's a no-brainer to have this this piece of gear. So that was one thing that crossed my mind at the time was when we started talking. It's just not. It's undervalued.
Yeah, and you always say, it's a game changer, right? That's a phrase you use a lot.
Yeah.
People
if people had a drinking game for how I use the term game changer, everybody would be drunk on every episode.
But, the reality is they're a game changer. If you're a backcountry hunter, they're a game changer. They just reduce fatigue. They help you to climb mountains you couldn't otherwise probably get up, on your own. And
I think they really prevent injury or even falling,
just everything.
Because when you're coming down a very steep grade, you've got over 100 pounds in your pack and your foot starts to slip.
Yeah.
If you think of a deer or an elk, they got
four legs.
Four legs.
Are always better than two.
Correct.
Exactly. 4 legs. There's a reason they've evolved with 4 legs. Because, when they lift one leg up, they have 3 firmly planted.
Right.
That's stability.
Yeah.
So when we effectively put trekking poles in our hands, we become like a 4-legged animal.
Yeah.
Now we can always have 3 points of contact on the ground as we move. And when you lose a little stability or a foot slides, you got 2 other points of support.
Yeah.
It's a totally different situation.
Yeah. And I think that, there's a lot of misconceptions about trekking poles out there. One is that they're for sissies, right?
Right. Well, you reinforce that.
Right. But the second thing is that, they're going to make up for a lack of physical fitness that, maybe I didn't become as fit as I needed to for this hunt. So I'm just going to get trekking poles and I'm just going to use them. But, that's really, in my mind, not the benefit of trekking poles. It's what you just talked about. That's extra stability, the use of 4 legs at the same time. And so I just really think that a lot of people undervalue trekking poles when they're hunting.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, it's for someone who doesn't kill anything. You may not realize, what you're missing because you don't need it as much.
Yeah.
But if you're routinely harvesting animals in the backcountry, you're carrying some heavy pack loads.
Yeah.
And trekking poles are a must.
Yeah, Brent and I were joking earlier. I've got a brother who's just like a killing machine, right? He's like Brad. This year was his 14th elk with a bow. Just crazy, right? And so I'm always the pack mule for him.
Weird.
But
is he your older brother too?
Yeah, he is, right?
Weird.
How weird is that?
Weird.
Right?
The story sounds familiar.
Yeah. But the difference between packing out animals with trekking poles and without is just unbelievable. It's just so much better.
We're going to give away a pair of these trekking poles, by the way, for everyone that's listening. We're going to do a giveaway. We're going to do it right here on the podcast today. We've said for a while, everyone who signs up to the Gritty newsletter, we're going to start picking winners and giving things away if you're on that list. So Brent's got the list, and he's going to
I can just pick a name,
select from the list today, and then let us know. So, but tell me this: why did you go with? What went into the design of this, and what made you think that you could just build a trekking pole and start a business?
Like I was saying earlier, tragedy of heirs. Right? About 3 years ago, we were hunting back in the backcountry, and before the season started, my brother said, "You really need to get a pair of trekking poles." And I was like, "Really? Trekking poles? I don't want trekking poles." He's like, "You're going to need them. You better get some."
Get some.
So I went, to the big box store, and I bought the cheapest pair that I could find. And
Costco, $20.
Yeah,
I use some of those that Anthony has.
Yeah,
this was in 2005. $20 from Costco.
Yeah, mine was Walmart, $19.99 specials, right?
Yeah. So carry on.
So we're 8 miles back in or whatever, and we're coming down this face loaded. Stick that thing in the ground, and it just bent right in half. I mean, literally 90-degree bend, no recovery. I mean, it was like that was done. That pole was done. And we still had 8 miles to go. And so I just, the whole way out, we were kind of talking about it. We were saying, could we make one out of carbon fiber maybe? And we just had these ideas and just thought we should try this. And I was ambitious enough to go, I think I'm going to really do it. And it was trial and error at that point. And, we were naive. We didn't know anything about trekking poles. I was like, carbon fiber would be sweet. And so we got look there. There's all kinds of different carbon fiber poles out there already that other companies had made. But the biggest complaint was that they break.
Right.
And we had worked with a couple that was going to hike the PCT for their honeymoon from Mexico to Canada, and we gave them a few prototypes that we had built and everything. And they got a week into it, and sure enough, that bottom section just snapped.
And that's pretty common. That bottom piece is skinnier than the rest of it.
Right.
It's hitting all the rocks and it's tinking and banging on things. And carbon fiber isn't really known for taking impact.
Yeah. So it's, just like your carbon arrows. If they get a nick in them,
it's done for.
Right.
And aluminum, on the other hand, that's stuff you can just bend it right back.
Yeah.
A lot of my aluminum arrows, they lasted forever. I mean, they didn't exactly fly straight, but they lasted.
It's nice to have that one arrow in the quiver that a corkscrew just the right way.
Yeah. Right. So, just through kind of that trial and error process, we got to
you determined that basically the upper pieces, the upper two sections, because it's a 3-section pole, the upper section the upper two could be carbon fiber, while the bottom half could be aluminum.
Yeah.
And that would address
that problem
of stability. Why not go all aluminum?
Well, weight, right? If you look at most all aluminum poles that are aerospace grade aluminum, they're in about the lighter ones are like 10.5 ounces up to like 12, 13 ounces per pole. And we were really conscious of that because we're backcountry hunters and every ounce counts, right? So
how much does this pole weigh?
7.5 ounces per pole.
Yeah. Substantial.
It's
40% lighter.
Yeah. And we talk about kind of that 3-ounce difference that it makes. And you calculate how many miles you walk in a 10 to 12 mile day, and how many times you're lifting up that pole. It's a substantial amount of weight that you're.
It adds up. Yeah, 3 ounces every step.
I noticed it on this last hunt when I used the crappy poles. I gave these to my daughter so she didn't die in the canyon on that elk hunt. And then I gave, and then she gave me the $20 ones that Anthony and I bought in 2005.
And you were like, whoa.
They had this spring in them that's supposed to be a shock absorber.
Right.
All that does is piss me off.
Yeah.
I stick it in the ground and it goes doing, doing. It's all this bounce and it makes a whole bunch of noise too.
Good idea.
Bad idea. I mean, that's like the dumbest thing. It's like a leash that's a bungee.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want my dog to just go. Like it's a dumb design.
Yeah.
So the pole really frustrated me.
Sure.
7.5 ounces. How much does this pole weigh when you get rid of the useless straps that no pole should ever have?
That I love, right? The straps that I can't do without.
Because that's a debate among us all the time. I do not like straps on trekking poles. Yeah. I hate them. Yeah. I always cut them off. I feel like they're adding weight. I don't like my wrist in there, like trapping me, so that when and I've done this. Like I remember in the Eagle Caps, my first set of poles. I was coming down this steep hill and I had those poles out, and then my pole got stuck in in like a crevice.
But you're on shale and you just keep going.
And I just slid, and I had like 100 and something pound pack, and I just slid. Yeah. My arm's getting yanked out of socket here, and then it just snaps the pole in half. And I'm like, I wanted to let go of the pole, but it was stuck in my arm.
Sure.
And ever since then, I found them just useless. Something to get rid of. And then Anthony's like, I can't believe you cut those off. Those straps are like, I don't want to use it without straps. Right. And don't those straps like hold your wrist up and help support? And I'm like, no, I don't have that's in your mind.
I don't have
they do for me.
It's total illusion.
Yeah. So, the way I use them, I actually come up through the bottom of the strap, and then my hand kind of goes over the top of it. onto the pole.
Same with lampers.
And for me, that just locks everything. It just engages everything all the way up through my shoulder. That's the way I like to use them.
I'm just going to say it right now. It's for people with really weak grips and weak forearms.
Sissies?
It's for sissies. Lampers seems to like that grip too. And there's two different ways that you can use the straps, you know, and it's personal preference.
Yeah. And I'm always, the other thing I'm doing is I'm just kind of changing all the time. So if I'm going uphill, I'm really engaged. That strap's on. Yep. I'm just powering up. If I'm going downhill, I just switch to the top grip.
That's how Ryan uses it too.
Yeah. Like a cane.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah, it's not my style. It is not my style.
Not everybody's got superhuman grip like you do. I mean,
Brian has forearms the size of most people's calves. Look at those things.
When I grip the thing, too, I like to hold the aluminum or the carbon.
Yeah.
I like, in fact, I like the idea of having a secondary foam choke up grip.
Yeah.
I love those.
We almost did that with this version of the pole, but we were really conscious about trying to save weight, number one. And number two, because I am a strap guy, I'm like, to get to the choke up, I got to take my hand out, then I got to re-grab. I'm like, it's faster to just
change the length of the pole.
Change the length of the pole.
That's what Ryan does, and I'm like, nope, I use the choke up.
Yeah.
And I have that. That's how all my other pole I used for like 9 years. That's what it had on it too.
Sure.
Because I don't want to have to stop to change the length of my pole, so as I'm coming up a hill, instantly I can shave 6 inches off of it, and then boom, I'm back to the right height and just move along.
Sure.
But everybody's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I also, grip and deadlift 400 pounds for reps. I don't think Ryan does.
Yeah, I don't either.
I do pull-ups. I mean, I have a good
strong grip
like that. I don't notice it. And so I use it different.
Sure.
But yeah, that's a debate. I think most guys, I mean, if you've done, I assume you maybe looked into it. I think most people use the straps.
They do. Yeah.
As much as that annoys me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can just keep cutting them off.
So
just cut them off.
Okay. And so, and as far as the rest of the design goes, one of the things when I talked to you on the phone originally, I was just waiting for you to say they had twist locks, and I was going to be like, not for me.
No thanks.
No
thanks.
So you ended up going with clip locks, and why is that? Like, because it seems like twist locks seem to be the rage or popular and different.
It's the failure rate on them, plain and simple. They don't last, and that constant just working.
It won't even grip. You're like, I've turned it 50 times, and it just won't engage.
It just pops all of a sudden. It just fail. And the flip locks kind of, they create a pressure point around that pole that just is going to hold it in place. And with the micro adjustments on them, if you ever do get really under load and they slip a little bit, you just quarter turn.
Yep.
Boom. It's just that much tighter.
That much tighter. Yeah.
So,
were you worried about a clip lock breaking the carbon fiber?
No, to be honest, no.
Yeah.
We haven't had that issue where anybody's done that.
Over-tightened
it. And we do a really good job of quality controlling every pole before it goes out the door.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of preset it where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people get them and they're like, oh, it's good. And if they need to adjust it, they're just making those micro adjustments.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people make a mistake is they get a pole, they'll open the lock and then they'll tighten this all the way down and then they'll try to shut it like that. And there's just too much pressure on it. And usually they'll just break the lock mechanism more than even the pole. But it's really about just, these don't have to be overly tight. They just need to hold the weight.
So when I'm out hunting, the other thing that is often coming up, I use my pole. Let's say I'm bear hunting with lampers, middle of nowhere, lots of rock, closing the distance, 100 or sub 200 yards. We're getting closer. When you use a pole, like one pole in your hand, maybe you got a rifle in the other, and you can use that pole to help you balance crossing a log as your stocking foot sneaking in on something.
Sneak attack.
You can be way quieter.
Sure.
With an extra thing to stabilize you and to help you keep your balance. You can put your foot just where you need it.
Yeah.
You know, you're not like falling over, you're jumping to a spot over a log or anything like that. So you can be very quiet. But in order to do that, you can't have a metal tip.
Yeah.
This metal tip, a carbide tip that people use, that's great if you're not a hunter, or it's great if you're just packing.
Sure.
You know, hunt's over. But this thing sucks when you're like trying to use a trekking pole and kill an animal at the same time.
Sure.
You might as well be like, tink, 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 like here I come, tink, tink.
I feel like a trash picker. Like I'm out there picking up leaves.
So
with it.
these little stoppers,
the rubber feet.
The rubber feet are great. They actually work really well. And they're nice when I'm crossing a boulder field and I don't want to announce the entire canyon that I'm coming for them.
Yeah.
And so this is really great, but they get sucked right off if they go into mud and you pull the pole out, and then then you're without. Yeah. And now you end up really not using your pole. What you end up doing is you just put it on your backpack and you go without a pole across the boulder field. That's stupid. When you have a pole and you're not using it,
sure.
You know, it'd be great if that rubber stopper was designed so you don't lose it when you need it, but could get rid of it when you don't. Sure. Now, having turned some of these carbide tips into hamburger and just thrashing them, still working, still totally functional, still getting the job done. But I don't know how good a rubber stopper works on it after back and forth.
I think it's okay. It's the problem that you described is the issue is losing it, right?
And I wondered, but if you put something like where you could screw it on, you'll chew those threads up
over time.
Oh, real quick.
Correct.
So you and I talked about this. We had some ideas like, well, you could get 2 aluminum lowers.
Right.
One that's glued on like rubber foot.
Or just a rubber foot in general.
Yep. And then the other one that's in a carbide tip.
Yeah.
And then you use whichever one you're using for whatever hunt. But a lot of times, like in the Hell's Canyon kind of hunt I did recently with my kids, that hunt, I wanted the grip, I wanted the actual spiky pole for some of that. And then I wanted the rubber stopper when I was in close.
You know, it's kind of like the strap debate. Mm-hmm. You know, some guys are just like, I never use the rubber feet. Like they always want that tip.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's guys, you know, they're stalking in and want to be super stealthy. And
so you need to make something for every scenario for every individual person.
Little Swiss Army knife stick.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm going to glue some into mine. I think I can get by without having the spikes. And for the most part,
you know, my brother's the same way. He leaves the rubber tips on all the time.
Well, that's what killers do.
I guess
that's what killers do. That's your problem.
He's killing every year, and I'm not. So I mean, you know, he's doing something right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I found like I've been gluing them in there just because, you know, when you hunt with lampers too, from the moment you're in the woods, you never do anything but whisper.
Yeah.
Until you go home.
Have you hung out with lampers?
Just a little bit.
He'll start talking normal to you, but then as the conversation goes, this is his natural talk.
Yeah, right.
And so when you're out there, it's always this, no matter what, 100% of the time for 14 days.
Yeah.
And so by the time you get home, it feels like people are yelling at you. Yeah. And what's funny is, you know, along with that is the hyper quiet attention to silence that we both are like that.
Sure.
I've always been that way. I hate when I'm with people who are loud. That walk loud, talk loud, trekking pole loud. Mm-hmm. So rubber stoppers are just 90% of the time they're there. They're on. Yeah. And I figure the times that they're not on, I can get by with having them on.
Sure.
You know, it's a little less grip. It's a little more slick. Maybe you're on mud or you're in a certain terrain and they slip a little bit more, but I can deal with that. I still have stability and stuff.
You know, for us, it's all about the versatility, you know, trying to give people the option to do what they want to do and really to build a pole that can be used all year long, not just 6 weeks of a year during a season, right? We, you know, these same poles we have for a skiing model, and we've got, you know, powder baskets and snow mud baskets that go on the bottom of them and all that stuff so that you can continue to use the same pole in the backcountry, whether you're, touring on skis or hunting or hiking or, whatever, just the one pole that you need. And so that's kind of why there's so many options.
How many, like, you got a first order came in, your production line, you sold out?
Yeah. That was a huge blessing for us is, we made that financial leap and was like, okay, we're putting our money on the table.
Here's our house mortgage.
Right. And, we're hopeful that we would sell them all. And, we officially launched August 5th and by September 30th, they were gone. I mean, it was
so cool.
Yeah, it was a huge blessing. Like I said, we were super grateful. A lot of pressure
what
off
a relief.
At that point.
We have a product. People like it.
Yeah.
So how have the returns been?
We've only had 2 warranty claim issues so far, and none of them had to do with the manufacturing of the poles. Right? It was one guy who fell on them and just full body.
That's going to snap it.
Any pole's going to do that.
It's
right?
like a horse backs up, steps on. It's like, it's not really the pole wasn't made for that.
Yeah. And, the other one was we kind of out of the kindness of our heart replaced a pair for a guy who extended them beyond what they were supposed to be extended and was using them in a shelter, and they got in super high winds. And it snapped because he had it extended way beyond the stop.
It's not
marks.
built
They're not
like that. Those joints have to overlap for stability,
for the strength. Yeah, and so those have been the only 2 things.
Okay,
so far
that's cool.
Yeah. That's why Lampers has his smashed down.
Yeah,
so it looks like he's like walking with like Hobbit trekking poles. Stability.
I have beat the crud out of these things.
Yeah,
I mean, I really have. I put probably more strain and use on them than people will do in 5 years.
Yeah.
And they held up. So I feel really good about the product and telling people to, invest in a pair. Yeah. And then I like their performance and I like their weight.
And that was a balance that we had to find, right? Originally we were like backcountry, ultra light. They got to be the thinnest, lightest thing we can create. And we actually created a prototype that was lighter than these by about an ounce and a half. But they were a skinnier diameter the whole way down and all, full carbon. And when we really put them through the paces, there was a balance between being ultra light and durability that we had to find. And it took us going through about, 3 different prototype models to find that right balance.
Yeah.
And still maintain an ultralight weight.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like in this production process, I mean, how many of these did you break? What did you researched it? Were you worried about, okay, we're about to commit to something, and what if you sell out of something and they all break?
Oh,
does that keep you up at night?
I was sweating bullets, right? Like every day, right? When we first launched and, they just were going out the door faster than we could package them, I was kind of like, I hope none of these come back.
Right.
The warranty, I hope,
Well, I was like, I told you, Brice, I'm like, I'm not going to endorse these until I've like really tested them, and I'm sure they're not garbage because I want my name out there and I want it behind a product that works and is good. And so after the Bear and then the Tar, I was like, oh, we can green light these. We can do this. They're not indestructible.
No, and no pole is, right? I mean, I don't care where you go unless you're buying a steel pipe that you want to carry around.
And that's something that someone, I've said to people, look, they're carbon fiber and aluminum. And you're, like you said, you're striking that balance between performance, right, and weight.
Right.
And I had this debate the other day. Someone asked me about sleeping bags. And I have a Kafari Slick bag. Love that bag. It's a great bag.
Yeah.
And it's perfect for, nuclear fallout. If the apocalypse comes, or if there's like zombies here, dude, that's the bag I want.
You're taking that thing.
But for a backpack hunt with lampers to go hunt bears or tar, I want that Stone Glacier Chill Coot. Yeah. It's the tool designed for the job, in my opinion.
Sure.
The other one's over-engineered for what I want. It doesn't strike the balance between performance and weight the same way.
Right.
And so I'm giving up some things with the Chilkoot and gaining some things that I think are more appropriate for the job.
Yeah.
So I could get a trekking pole that is a lot tougher, maybe, or just that's arguable. But
it's arguable.
You've really pushed.
That's really
you've really prioritized toughness against weight. Yeah. But still, I could get something that's just an iron pole,
sure,
right? But it's not quite engineered for that job, So I like the balance that you've struck with the durability and then the weight. So what was the thing that you have learned, like a couple of things you've learned during this process?
I think the biggest thing is just take your time and get it right. That was, we could have gone to market a lot earlier than we did, but the product would have been a lot inferior than what it is today. One of the greatest compliments that I think I saw recently is, Ryan kind of did a post about the gear he's been using this year. And, we're fortunate enough that he's switched over to our poles as well. And in one of his comments on his Instagram post, Michael from Randy Newberg's crew said, "I'm still using my prototypes and I love these sticks."
Yeah.
And, we put this is the 6th kind of generation of a prototype, right? Before we got a production model. And I just knew that if we put out a product that was going to be subpar, and we only get one shot, right?
Absolutely.
We need to take our time and do it right and put out a product that people are going to test and go, yeah, these are legit. They held up.
That's one of the reasons I like Leupold. They had a range finding bino that I was totally into. I dropped Randy Newberg's off a cliff, actually.
Yeah. Brent told me about
the prototype version that he'd had like a couple of years, and then I managed to break them on the first day. And then it was another 2 years before they got it out. So they just were not going to release it until they had all the range finding tech dialed, until it was doing everything it could do, and they could take a hit like that.
Right.
Well, it would have been really tempting to get that out on the market. They really needed it out on the market. Others had come out with a range finding bino, but it was like there's some wisdom in the same way they don't carry any debt. Everything's paid for in cash that Leupold carries with them, where they're like, you know what, we're not going to do this more than once.
Yeah.
We're not going to rush it out there and then have to fill all these warranties. That's not what we're known for. We do it. We're going to hold on to it until it's ready. I think that's a really smart way to do business, because once you hurt your reputation by putting out something now you're in question.
Yeah. I mean, especially for us where we don't have brand recognition, right? We're not a Leupold, we're a startup from the ground trying to build a brand. And I just knew that there's no way I could put a product out that wasn't going to meet the needs and the expectations. So.
What's your advice to entrepreneurs who want to get into manufacturing and production and branding and marketing a product? Don't do it. Don't do it. Keep your day job.
Yeah, right. It's a lot easier to sit behind a desk. I think it's just see your idea through to the end, right? Whether it succeeds or fails, don't give up on it until you know if it's going to succeed or fail, because you just don't know. And until you really get to that point, you're just cutting yourself short. If you're not willing to put it all out on the line and take it all the way, there was many a night where, my wife and I had a conversation and I'm like, honey, I don't know if I should keep doing this. And, you kind of go through those moments of doubt where you just are like, can I really build a trekking pole that people are going to want to buy and use? I mean, there's all kinds of trekking pole companies out there already. But you just have to have enough faith that, I can do this.
Levi Morgan said on a show recently, most people quit right before their dreams are made.
Yeah.
Right before.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. Like, if someone would have come to you, let's say 12 months ago, and said, you'll sell out of your first group of pulls and you'll be sitting in Gritty's studio having a podcast.
I would have been like, no.
Would that
no, right? I mean, no, wasn't even on my radar screen. Like, I mean, at that point it was still just very much an idea in my head, and the reality of even making it a real thing, I wasn't at that point yet. It was still just, this is a fun hobby, right? It was an expensive hobby, trying to build a trekking pole and go through that process. But it was just a hobby at that point, and really, it didn't really become a reality until we solved that aluminum on the bottom problem, right? Once we did that, and we went out and we took it through some real strenuous, we were like, we got something now. And at that moment, it was like, okay, this is real. Let's actually make this a reality instead of just having it be kind of one of those pipe dreams, so to speak, So,
and, financially, how much of a burden has it been? I mean, I don't expect a dollar figure, but you're putting.
I mean, I'm a self-funded startup, right?
And the thing about that is you may not get any money back.
Yeah,
I think that's the difference too. Like, an entrepreneur is willing to, roll the dice.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was a calculated risk, right?
But you got to know at the end of the day, I could just lose every bit I put into this.
I mean, there were definitely times where my wife was kind of like,
"You're lucky I love you."
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you should spend any more money on this unless you're gonna really make it a reality.
Yeah,
and lucky for me, she's a phenomenal woman and has been. I can't call her on a podcast recently. You said, or no, it was a post that you had where you called your wife your biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
Well, my wife's the dance coach at the high school. So if I call her a cheerleader,
it's a slight insult.
Yeah, it's an insult.
Yeah.
So she's not my biggest cheerleader, but she's my biggest supporter.
I like dancers too.
Yeah.
I like cheerleaders. I like dancers.
But
I just like this one cheerleader named Suzanne.
Yeah.
I don't like other cheerleaders.
Yeah, exactly.
Love you, wife.
But she's been, the best support for me. And, we've fulfilled her dreams in the past of owning her own dance studio and doing the thing. And she was like, you know what? It's your turn and it's your time. And if this is something you really want to do, then I support you no matter what it costs.
Yeah.
And so even though, financially it was like, we're putting out some money now to do a production, roll of these. It was,
when we talked on the phone, you sounded a little bit stressed. I was like, hey man, I think you got something really good. I think that people are going to like these, And, again, we couldn't be more blessed with how they've been received. The feedback that we've gotten, the opportunities to participate in things that, Disabled Outdoorsmen just did a hunt here in Utah. And they brought in a guy, Tate Hale, and you guys know Sydney Smith. He was part of that, and Sean Ward with Treading Timber, I think is his guide service. Yeah.
And, they just called me up and they were like, hey, I think it was actually Corey Jacobson that kind of turned them on to who we were. And Sean called and he's like, this is what we've got going on. Would you be interested at all in donating, some pairs to the hunt? And we were like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Let's contribute to something that's bigger than just who we are now and even what we ever will be, because, we're helping somebody have an experience that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do.
Well, and what's great about this too, and I said this from day one, Lampers and I had this discussion. I don't want to support a mainstream, anti-hunting or even just non-hunting organization when I can support one that lives and breathes hunting and the hunting ethic and what it's all about and conservation. Why not support those companies that give back to what we believe in and support what we believe in?
Right.
I mean, it just makes sense. And so I like latching on to and finding companies like yours that We're all hunters.
Right.
And now we're taking care of each other when we buy and use and promote hunting brands instead of big box store kind of brands. And that's a big reason why I gave these a shot.
Sure. Simply
because they weren't an REI brand.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
And some people that I trusted said, you should check these out, which was kind of, you didn't have a chance on your own. You didn't sell them to me at
Probably
all.
not.
It was other people that sold them for you.
And along those lines, I've been really blessed and fortunate that, Ryan Bassham, Harrison Lindsay, those are guys that,
over at
Sitka, that I've been able to kind of bounce ideas off of here and there and say, hey, what do you think about this? And, they've been a wealth of knowledge, and they've been great at just saying, yeah, that's a great idea, or no, that's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Steer clear of that. And so that, that helped us along the process from everything from just the way we were approaching product design to packaging to the experience overall. I mean, it just
How did you build or leverage these relationships? I know there's people out there wondering, how do I talk to some of these people? Seem maybe untouchable for an average guy, or
I go to church with a couple guys, but the other side of it is you got to be brave enough to just make the call or send the message,
show up at their door,
or whatever,
or work,
or work, right? And you got to get over that fear of they're going to reject me or they're going to turn me down, and you just have to go for it. And Corey Jacobson and Randy Newberg, they don't actively endorse our product, but in our kind of development stage, our R&D stage, we sent polls to those guys, and they tested them out, and they said, hey, here's what I like about it. Here's what I don't like about it. And we were able to make some adjustments and modifications off of, their advice and their input, which is invaluable, right? Those guys and like guys like you are out in the field a lot during the year, and you're going to know, you're going to be able to tell if something needs adjusting on these things. And so it was just a matter of, good fortune of knowing some people and going to church with some people, and then just having the guts to reach out to some people.
Yeah.
And it just worked.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Brent, somebody should win this pair of Sissy Sticks. Someone who signed up for the Gritty newsletter, who went to briancall.com and signed up for the newsletter. And that person would be who, Brent?
So I had to go with, just since we're announcing them on the podcast, only those people who subscribed and gave us their names.
Yeah,
I had to go through. Because I'm not going to give out someone's email on the podcast.
That's a bummer for some people.
It is. But they can still have an opportunity to win other stuff. Just for now, only those that gave us their names. And this winner of these Sissy Sticks is Brice Irvine.
Brice Irvine.
Congratulations.
That sounds like a cowboy right there.
Congrats, Brice. We're going to send you an email, figure out where we can send this pair of sticks. And then we'll do another giveaway. Give away some more polls. And
I'm surprised it took so long for someone to put an aluminum bottom.
Well, there are some brands that have done that.
Yeah, when we thought we were going to be first to market with this design. I think we were first to market, but
quickly thereafter.
Yeah,
your brand recognition was
right.
Not enough to.
So, but as far as comparing this product to the similar products, because we're direct to consumer right now, we're at a price point that those other guys can't touch.
Yeah.
And so, you're getting just as good or better quality of product at a very reasonable price.
Lots of value here.
Yeah, a lot of value.
Yep. And then you can just cut these stupid straps off and you got a sweet set of poles.
Yeah. Or leave them on.
All right. If people want to get a pair, they can save 15% off if they use the code GRITTY.
Right.
Which is awesome because as I build your business, you build mine, and it's a great partnership. Yep.
Yeah.
And so it's been fun to be part of this whole thing. And
well, I couldn't be happier that you guys got on board with the product, and just again feel super grateful for your support and blessed to have you as a partner. So
yeah, it's ditto. And they go to Big Sissy Gear.
Well, you can go to bigsissygear.com or you can just go to sissysticks.com. Either way, it goes to the same place.
And use the code GRITTY. You save 15%. And then that makes them 100.
It's like 110 something. Yeah. 110.49 or I don't know, something like that.
And what, just in comparison, competitors with a similar pole with the aluminum and so on, what are they running?
Yeah, they're in like the 180 to 230 range.
Dang.
Yeah.
Carbon fiber aluminum.
I mean, we've done a straight comparison.
Yeah.
And you're
giving these away, bro.
180. I know. But that's our model right now as far as direct to consumer and cutting out the retail chain and mostly just wanting to get a product out there that people can afford and use.
And the thing is you guys are coming out with some other cool stuff as well. So when they go to bigsissygear.com over time, you're going to fill that with some new cool stuff I've seen a bit of it and it's really neat.
Hopefully.
So it's
I know Brent likes it. He's already saying
I'm a fan.
Well, what's neat about it is some of these things are just they're simple items that everybody kind of wants.
Right.
But right now, your only option is like a couple of companies, and they're not hunting related.
Right.
And they're not built the way you got some little tweaks to them that make them. You took something and you made it better.
Yeah.
Or lighter, and so I like that. So people can go to bigsissygear.com or sissysticks.com.
Yep.
And also they can follow you on Instagram.
Yeah, that's at Big Sissy Gear.
There's not much there, folks. It's mostly my pictures and just kidding. Just kidding. Go follow. And you're going to start doing some giveaways and things like that as well for people. So someone can follow along and maybe just get a pair.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
So.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. If you've got any questions for us, please leave them in the comments on YouTube. We like to read them there. Send us an email. You can go to briancall.com to do that, and we'll read it. Read it there. Anything else, Brent? Sign up for the newsletter.
Go to briancall.com. Scroll down to the bottom. Subscribe to the newsletter. While you're
YouTube.
There, YouTube.
Subscribe to YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Which is awesome, by the way. Like, I love watching the podcasts more than just listening.
Yeah.
So when I was driving down, I had to just listen. And I was like, I'm really missing something. I just
they say 90% of communication is nonverbal, or 80 or whatever it is. A lot of communication is nonverbal.
Yeah.
And so some people, they really struggle listening to a show because they can't see all these nonverbal cues.
Sure.
And others are quite adept at it. I think it just depends on the individual and personal taste. So I told you this, our podcast videos represent like 3% or 2% of our total downloads for the podcast.
Sure. So
this year we're at like 1.5 million.
That's crazy.
Downloads of the podcast. And we're still just in October.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty awesome.
That's just on iTunes only, not on other download platforms too. So the show's doing great. We're really enjoying what we're doing, and I feel like we're producing content that people are finding valuable. I get a lot of people writing in saying what we did was meaningful, and I think that's what it's all about. You know, producing stuff that either inspires, empowers people, gives them knowledge. It's good. I hope the films are doing that too.
They are.
In the sense of, hey, this is gear we use. This is how we did the hunt. This is where we went, without, making it about someone who died last year that is coming back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just, there doesn't, it
everybody loves
the
little, gear pop-ups that come out of the videos. Those are awesome.
They've been great. And cool. For the record, we have 10 more videos or so on the way we're going to produce. We got 2 elk hunts, 2 backcountry elk hunts, over-the-counter public land hunts, and 1 mule deer hunt that is going to be incredibly epic.
Incredibly epic. Yeah.
Lampers and I'm leaving tomorrow, and we're going to film it.
To a
14 days.
Secret, undisclosed.
In the middle of freaking nowhere. Yeah. If we come back alive, we're going to have a great film. So, or not film, but like a 4 or 5 part series like we've been doing. So I'm excited. I'm excited about the video production side of what we're doing. It's been really fun. I feel like we've matured a lot in that space, and the content is
phenomenal.
It's fun.
It's phenomenal.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, folks.
Okay.
Thanks for tuning in, and stay gritty.